Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lease Option live stream LOL show. This is Friday edition, of course, where we rarely talk about lease options lately. We've been talking about a lot of different topics, and today I've got a really special topic that I want to jump into, something that I'm not vastly familiar with. However, a little familiar with. I've used self storage units before to store things. I don't know, maybe you have too. And maybe that's really the hook for us because you see, it's a thing that folks need. So it's probably in demand. So it's probably a great investment. So that's what we're jumping into today, talking about self storage investments. And I have the best guest in the world on that topic. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but you are now. Mr. Alex Pardo. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here today.
Justin, man, I appreciate the invite to be on your show and to be able to give back and share, talk about storage, why I think it's the best asset class out there. And dude, man, I enjoy connecting with you and learning from you. So I'm excited to be here, brother.
Well, that's great, man. Thanks for being here. I'm real honored that you took your time to spend a little time with us. And also want to say welcome to Kelly Johnson in the room. Hey, it's good to see you, old friend. And if you want to pop in here into the Zoom room, you're more than welcome to. It's zoomjustin.com. Just come on in here and let's just yuck it up for a little while and ask some questions and get all the great information and good gold nuggets. Pull them right out of Alex that we can. Okay. That's the goal, is to get some gold nuggets and to learn and to take our game up to the next level. And we can do that right now in kind of a very personal, man-to-man kind of fashion. So hop in here, zoomjustin.com. If you're not going to hop in here, thanks for watching. And if you're catching the replay, I wish you could have been here. But hey, thanks for watching the replay. So let's talk about self-storage units. Like I said, I'm a little unfamiliar with the topic because, I'm a pretty house guy. But my sister-in-law's parents owned a self-storage facility. So, Alex, I guess I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, are we talking about facilities or are we talking about the actual units? But before we get into the details, tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about yourself, Alex. Who are you? Where are you from? Where you live now? And what got you started in the self-storage business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll try to keep it as brief as possible so we can get into the content and the meat that's actually going to help people. But so I'm born and raised in Miami. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. In fact, I'm the only entrepreneur in my family. And I took a job out of college with General Electric in their financial management program. And one of the things I always share with people, Justin, is that if you struggle to find clarity and purpose and try to figure out what your path is, ask yourself what you don't want to do. And I share that because for me, I knew that 3 months into that job, I was not wired to work for somebody else. I couldn't envision just continuing to work for a paycheck and doing something I didn't really enjoy. So I finished that 2-year program. I went backpacking around Europe for 3.5 months.
Wow.
Visited 53 cities in 21 countries in 3.5 months. Funded the entire thing on a credit card. I think it cost me about 7 grand. We were like
Wow.
really roughing it out in hostels and all types of crazy
Yeah, that's
things.
cheap for doing all that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, man. So while I was on the train is when I started to really immerse myself into educating myself about real estate and just personal development. I moved back to Miami at 25 years old, moved back in with my parents. Was not a good look. That's not how I drew it up. And I had a lot of motivation to go out and get involved in real estate, start my own business. So I went to a marketing for deals boot camp. And when I got back home, Justin, I plucked out a pre-foreclosure letter and I went to Kinko's and I made photocopies and I sent out my first pre-foreclosure direct mail campaign. Now, these letters, imagine because of the photocopies, you see the 3 black holes, right? Like that is how I got started. And about 3-ish months later, I closed my first deal, made
Wow.
$44,000. I
Wow.
was so scared that I ended up bringing on somebody to help me with the deal. So we ended up splitting that. And that was late 2005, man. So I've been involved in real estate ever since. It's ironic because we're going to talk about storage today. I got involved in real estate because I wanted cash flow. I wanted to build wealth. I wanted time freedom. And yet for 16 years, I was playing the wrong game. I was wholesaling
Mm-hmm.
real estate, which provided a lot of income, but it didn't give me that time freedom. It certainly didn't give me, passive income. I wasn't really building my wealth per se. And 2018, man, I had a defining moment. I was on a cruise with my wife. Deals were falling apart. I was just getting burnt out from chasing deals. And I told my wife, I said, the business I'm currently in feels like I've built prison walls around. And
Ooh.
I didn't have the key. And I said, I need to start making a shift. And so I started acquiring and buying single family rentals, thinking that was going to be
Oh,
my path to build wealth. And 4 or 5 houses in, I realized, man, this is going to take a long time. And one furnace, one roof, and it wipes out my cash flow for the
yeah,
year. I don't know if you guys can relate to that.
exactly. Yeah.
And at the time, this is when I start to transition. So at the time, I was coaching a gentleman that owned a storage facility. And I got to see that the reason I got into real estate, storage checked all those boxes: time freedom, cash flow. It's a business with the benefits of real estate, but I didn't require a big team. At that time, Justin, my overhead was about $45,000 a month. And so I
And,
just started
and
over the course
wholesaling.
in wholesaling. Yeah. So I
Whoa.
had a team of 9. We spent about $13,000 a month just on direct mail, uh, EOS implementers and systems and processes in the office and a COO, and my overhead ballooned.
Yeah.
And I had to do 2 to 3 deals a month just to basically break even. And I said to myself, there's got to be a better way. So I ended up unwinding the wholesaling business
That's
after
that's
16
that's
years.
ulcer territory, isn't
Yes.
it? Like
Yes. Dude,
you
I
got,
was so stressed.
yeah, yeah, you had to have been. I mean, and I hear other guys talk like that. I'm just like, my goodness, how do you
Yeah.
sleep at night?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was stressful, and yet I had created that monster that had to be fed every single month. And so I shut down the business basically. And 6 months later, after taking a little bit of time off to really gain some clarity, I said, man, I'm jumping into storage. Self-storage is going to be the path for me. And now fast forward 3.5, 4 years later, and I'm happy to answer any questions and get into case studies. But I now own 838 units across 3 facilities.
Oh, wow.
It's about 104,000 square feet, and it's awesome, man. It's a simple business. All we do is rent space, and yet it provides for that time freedom that I think most people are really after.
Listening to you explain that just that way makes me feel like it's smarter because in self-storage investing, you have all these little tiny rental houses that nobody lives in. Hopefully, they just put their stuff. So when
Yeah.
you said how many units you have again? Eight, how many?
It's 838 units,
Wow.
104,000 net rentable square feet. Yeah.
So
And
yes, across how many facilities?
3 facilities. I have one in Amelia Island, Florida, and then I have 2 in Mississippi.
So in just 3 facilities, you've created potentially over 800 checks every month.
Yes,
Basically, right?
basically.
Yeah. That's remarkable, and you've already really set the hook for me, because I like what you're saying. But let me welcome Angel here. Thanks for being here, Angel and Ty. Is it okay if the folks in the gallery here, the
A
panel?
hundred. In fact, the more interaction, the better. I want this. I don't want, if I'm the only one talking, I'm probably doing something wrong. So hopefully people have some questions and we can make this interactive.
Well, okay, great. So I'm sure there's a lot that we can dive into here about that. Do you guys have a question to kick off? Because I've already started it, and I'm excited to ask some more questions. But if
I
I
have a
don't want to
question.
step on you guys, yeah, Ty.
How you doing? So I know, Alex, you were in real estate, like what residential. What's your journey from there to where you are now? Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, Ty. Thank you for the question, and it's good to connect with you, brother. So yeah, like I said, in 2020 is when I really shut down the wholesaling operation, and then when I got involved in storage, if I'm being honest with you and transparent, I came in overly confident, borderline cocky, even though that's not my nature,
Mm,
because I felt like because of my experience and success,
mhm.
wholesaling, single family, fix and flip, lease options, creative financing. I'm like, oh, I'm going to find a storage facility pretty quickly, and this is going to be great. And then March of 2021, I looked up, I had 0 results to show. And through a coaching call, I discovered I wasn't doing the work. And one thing that I want to start by sharing with everybody here is that there's no replacement or substitute for us actually doing the work. right? Storage is not a get rich quick scheme. It's a real business, a real asset, but it requires time, energy, and effort, like everything else worth doing. And so March of
Wait,
that
wait, wait,
year,
wait, wait, Alex. You didn't tell us you were going to step on our toes now about we got to get to work. Okay, but that's okay. No, I love it, man.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're 100% right.
Well, here, let me do a little foreshadowing. So those three facilities, and then I'm going to circle back and answer Ty's question directly. Those three facilities I own, Justin, if I told you I spend an hour and a half to 2 hours a week managing that portfolio, that's probably a lot. So
Wow.
the bulk of the work and energy and effort has come in finding those opportunities, structuring them. But once you get them stabilized, like they're pretty hands off. It's a pretty simple business. But back to Ty's question. So once I recommitted myself to storage March of 21, a month and a half later, I was under contract on my first facility, a 43,000 square foot facility in Mississippi. And I was able to get SBA financing for 85%. I bought that facility for 1.592 million. SBA gave me 85% financing. And then I brought in an equity partner to put down the 15% equity that we needed to get into the deal, along with some money to put an automated gate and do some additional things. So I've been involved in 6 storage transactions, guys, and I have yet to put one penny of my personal money into any of these deals.
Wow.
So they can all be structured, whether it's through creative financing, which I can share with you a case study on one of those, bank financing, private lenders, equity partners. One of the things that I hope people walk away from this Zoom knowing is that you don't have to wear all the hats to run and find the storage. If you can bring a particular skill set, a particular asset or resource to the table, you can carve out a piece of these deals. So Ty, as an example, let's say you're really good at finding deals. You can find storage facilities. I can give you some very basic criteria. You can find the opportunity and bring it to somebody like myself, and you can get equity in that deal just by finding it. Maybe you
Okay.
have a network. Yeah.
I got a question I want to interject right here because I'm just dumb. I don't really know. And are there? I mean, I know where a few, like maybe 2 or 3 storage facilities are near where I live.
Mhm.
I live in a pretty urban area, and I'm sure there's others beyond the 2 or 3 that I'm aware of. But are there really enough storage facilities? And when I say storage facilities, I mean really more specifically mom and pop owned, because that's my guess is that
That's
we're not targeting some big corporation that owns thousands of storage facilities. We're targeting some mom and pops out there. And so are there that many of them? Or
yeah.
what's the layout of the market like? I mean, what does it look like for us if we're thinking about getting into storage facility
Yeah,
investing?
great question, Justin. And I love it because it's got so many layers. Let me attack it on a couple different fronts. You're 100% right. I live in Miami. I've never spent 1 minute of looking for storage in Miami. So big cities like Miami, like Vegas, maybe Dallas, those are run by the REITs, the real estate investment trusts that own the public storages of the world, Extra Space, CubeSmart. Those are not the types of Class A facilities we're looking for. We're looking for Class B, Class C, mom and pop operated facilities in secondary and tertiary markets. So what do I mean by secondary, tertiary? I like to target cities that have anywhere between 1,000 people and 60,000 people, right? Where the household
Okay.
median income is at least $50,000 and the population is increasing. Those are some 3 basic criteria I look for as it relates to the market,
So what
right?
you're saying is that where I live in an urban area, it might be considered Class A, corporate owned or owned by REITs. You're saying, but
Mhm.
outside here in some of these more rural communities where there are storage facilities, population of 1,000 to 60,000, those are more mom and pop owned still. They haven't been consolidated up by some big REIT or some big corporation or something. Is that correct?
Exactly. And think about these big corporation and REITs. They're looking to operate in the big cities. There's a big sandbox, right? They're not going to be setting up shop in a town that has 4,000 people, right? So like we're not competing directly against the public storages of the world. And here's what's really cool. Like most of us come from the single family space. Now, obviously, there's a lot more volume as far as houses that we can go out and purchase or structure creative deals. There's also a lot more people because the barriers to entry are so low going after these single family homes, right? Last I checked, there's over 70,000 mom and pop run operated storage facilities in the
Wow.
country. Over
Wow.
70,000. But you have a very small percentage of people like myself going after them. Now, look, I'm not going to lie, right? Storage is a lot more popular. It's a much more accepted asset class today than it was 5, 10 years ago. But even with that, there's so much opportunity out there. And so if you look for mom and pop operated facilities in the kind of markets that I'm talking about, there's opportunity. And here's the great thing. Like, Justin, I'm not dealing with tenants. I'm not dealing with toilets. There's so many things that in the single family world, we have headaches that we have to deal with, that in storage, we don't have to deal with that. We're talking about block buildings, metal roofs, garage doors, and we rent space. It's pretty simple.
That's awesome. So I heard you say earlier, you mentioned this just in passing, that how you reach out to these 70,000 mom and pop units or facilities in the country, is you invented this marketing method that you use at Kinko's?
Well, that's how I got my first single family deal, right back in 2005. But no, I still do direct mail. Direct mail for me has been one of the best marketing channels. I realize it's not sexy. It's not like everybody's heard about direct mail, but I can't tell you how many deals I've done single family and now storage as a result of direct mail. So the way that I think about marketing, Justin, is I like to think about being proactive and I like reactive, right? So like if there's anybody that's gone fishing, like you go trolling, you got bait in the water, right? And you got fish that come to you. That's how I think about direct mail. But I also like being proactive and going out and getting in front of these mom and pop storage operators. So the deals that I've been involved in have all come from either direct mail, relationships, or cold calling, right? And two of those are free, right? And direct mail is pretty inexpensive. So there's a variety of ways to market to generate motivated storage owner leads, but I've really focused on direct mail, cold calling, and just relationships in general.
That's beautiful. It's beautifully simple. I've already, you can tell I'm a detail kind of guy in the sense that I'm trying to dive into breaking this whole system down. But let me just back up for a minute because we didn't ask this yet. What kind of profits are there in doing self storage facilities? With 800 and something units
Yeah.
across three different facilities, how much is a unit worth to you annually?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you some very specific numbers. So my first facility I bought for 1.592. My third facility I bought for 1.2, right? So I have those two facilities under contract. The first one I have it under contract to sell for 2.495. So again, bought it for 1.592. It's under contract for 2.495. The other one I have under contract for just under 2 million, and I bought it for 1.2. Now, so the profits are very healthy, not to mention the cash flow we've been generating over the last year to 2 years that I've owned it.
Can I pause again? Is that an equity like I would think of equity in real estate normally, or are we talking about some kind of multiple of an income or cash flow?
No, pure equity. That's pure equity.
Okay. Wow. Yep. Okay. You got my attention, man.
That is pure equity. Now, one of the things that I think is really important, because people always ask like, hey, how lucrative is storage? Well, it can be very lucrative, but the true answer is it depends, right? Like it depends on the market. It depends on the size of the facility. It depends on occupancy. One of the things that's important to understand is in single family, as we know, the value of a house is determined by the comparable sales, right? The comps in the area. In commercial real estate, and storage is an asset class within commercial, the value is determined based on the NOI, the net operating income. So in other words, in simple terms, the income that the asset produces is what determines the value.
Sure.
So one of the things that's fascinating to me about commercial real estate and specifically storage is that if I was to bump the rates on my units, let's just call it a simple $5. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, I've increased an extra $400 a month in NOI because I've bumped the rates. That doesn't sound very appealing. But when you multiply and when you add a cap rate to that and you say, okay, well, now I'm going to sell this based on a cap rate, it's exponential what a simple $5 a month bump in rents can do to the overall value of the facility. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Are we talking about when we, oh, and we got questions here in the chat too, and I don't mean to ignore you guys, but I'm really getting into this. Okay, are we talking about value add? So like once you get your foot in the door in one of these facilities, do you have to put a bunch of stuff into this to value add to make it better than it was when you got it, so that it'll increase in this
That's
uh,
ex-
cash flow, or what are we talking? The
that's
NOI?
Like
that's exactly right.
additional, like just land on the side so you build more, or is that what
Yeah,
you're
No,
saying,
what is
Justin?
the typical value add? That I think that's what you're asking,
yep.
Ty.
Okay.
Yeah, so I look for very simple, light lift value add. So let me give you a simple example of a value add, right? I look for mom and pop operated facilities that are not treating it and running it like a business.
Mm,
So let me give you an example. Ty, imagine that you bought a house in 1997, and
hmm
let's say that you rented that house out for 700 bucks during that time. Imagine if you still own that house today, but yet you never raised the rent. And today you were still renting it for 700 bucks. I share that example because that's the equivalent of what a lot of these old school mom and pop storage owner operators are doing. They have these units, but they haven't raised the rates to what's called the average of the market street rates. So, a simple value add for me is identifying these opportunities and looking at the street rates. In other words, looking at the competitors within a 5 mile radius of that facility. And as an example, let's say that I'm looking at a facility and they have a bunch of 10 by 10s, and they're asking $45 a month for a 10 by 10, which is 100 square feet of storage. But I look at the competition and the competition is at $80 or $85 a month. Well, if I'm able to structure it creatively, or if I'm able to purchase that facility just by going in and raising the rates on the 10 by 10s from 45 to 75 or $80 to be right around the
Wow.
market, that's adding significant value to that facility. And all it takes is just a simple bump in rates. That's one example of a value add
Okay.
opportunity.
Sounds very
Wow.
similar
So
to
just
like
money found.
multifamily. Yeah. Like a multifamily unit, you go in, it may need fixed up. The rents are 800, it should be 1200. So there's $400 gap there, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. But can you imagine, like he's talking about a 35 or $40 jump there per unit. And
hmm
let's say you have 250 units,
Oh,
Compounding
you know,
multiple. Yeah.
that's like having a paid off rental home. Like like you don't have a mortgage on it and you're just cash flowing 100%.
yeah.
We got
So I have
a
a
question here.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Sorry.
ahead, Angel.
I was gonna say, so what kind of stops me in my tracks usually when I look at these kinds of things like self-storage or other kinds of commercial assets is, are we really looking at it through the lens of buying real estate, or are we looking at it through we're buying a business?
Bingo. The second one,
Okay.
you're buying a business. It just has the
Okay.
benefits of real estate. Now, don't get me wrong, because one of the questions that people ask me, Angel, is like, well, do you own the land? 100%. You own the real estate. But I love the way that you're thinking. You're buying a business. You're not necessarily buying real estate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Which
Yeah.
means also that you may have to manage employees or get rid
No,
of bad employees, or in order to step in and manage a business, that's a whole different thing than managing a single family or a multifamily property.
I am
Maybe there's
so
a
glad you went
robot
there.
that does this now.
Uh,
Is there a robot that
I'm so glad you went here because I think I might blow your mind. So I own
Uh-oh.
3 facilities. Check this out. I own 3 facilities. I went from having a team of 9 and having overhead of $45,000 a month running a simple wholesaling business. I now own these 3 facilities. Ask me how many employees I have. Zero.
How
wow.
many?
Zero.
Okay.
Interesting.
Zero.
Wow.
Zero. Now, why do I have 0 employees? We run what's called an unmanned model, right? In other words,
Unmanned
you know how in
model.
traditional storage, you walk up, you go to the office, you talk to the man or woman behind the
Yep.
counter, and you say, "Hey, what do you have? I want to rent a unit." Well,
Yep.
even though my facilities have offices, they're vacant, they're closed, they're locked. Everything is done mobile or calling the call center. In
Oh,
other words, people cannot go and sign a lease. When they rent a unit, everything is done mobile or online.
online.
And I have a third party management company that runs the operations, the day to day of the business. And then I have one part time local boots on the ground team member. He's
Right.
the one that's responsible for doing the lock audits, unit
Blocks, yeah.
cleanouts, taking pictures and uploading it to our auction site. So most people think that you need to have a big team because you have a business. That's why I love storage. It's a business, but yet I don't have any employees. These facilities, I've been to them twice, and I've owned several of them for at least a couple of years. I don't have to travel there. I don't have to go there often. It's a very
Wow, it's
simple,
really good.
slow business model.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time in our session here where I've gotten scared a little bit, man. And and I'll
Talk to
and
me.
I'll tell you why. Because well, here's a question. It sounds like there's a lot of I don't know about how a storage facility runs. Okay. But we have a question here in the chat that kind of goes along with this. He's asking about something you mentioned earlier. When did you mention to bring a storage deal to you and get an equity share percentage? Okay. So if I don't feel comfortable with all these details yet, I can do that. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yeah, absolutely. There's different ways. One of the things that I hope everybody walks away with is it's so important to have self-awareness. And we all have unique abilities, skill sets, assets, and
Sure.
resources. When we talk about assets, people automatically default to real estate or money. Well, your network, right? Your contacts, the knowledge you have, the experience, like those are all assets. So take inventory of all your assets and figure out, hey, how can I bring value to a storage operator, or how can I get involved in storage if I don't want to be the one to do wear all the hats, right? One of the ways you can do that is if you were to bring me an opportunity, hey, Alex, here's a storage owner that's raised their hand and they're willing to sell. And if I could just give you a few pieces of information that you need to collect from them, I'm able to take that lead, take that opportunity. If I'm able to negotiate something, buy it, you can absolutely get a piece of that deal just for bringing it to me.
Wow.
Or it could be a wholesale fee. There's a lot of different ways to get involved in this deal.
Wow,
So
that's
100%.
good.
Yep.
Your
That is great.
numbers are really impressive. I mean, like bam, bam, bam. And I work with a lot of mom and pop investors that have like 50K or 100K that we usually put them in real estate. What what's the real like the sizzle? Is it just like, hey, I want to build my portfolio. I want to change the poor nation of this country. Like, what's the sizzle that you've gotten that you're into, you know,
Yeah.
what's
So are
your
you,
the why? Yeah,
yeah, for me, the why is time freedom, Ty.
time premium.
Yeah,
Okay.
time freedom. The money, people, I always ask people like, hey, what's your goal? And they always give me a dollar amount. But
Mm-hmm.
what's behind that? It's what the money can do for you, right? And so for me, it's time
It's
freedom,
powerful.
doing the things I enjoy with our loved ones. I really think ultimately most of us, I can't speak for you guys, but I find that most people, that's ultimately what they want. They want time freedom, they want options, right? Like look
Mm-hmm.
at somebody like Justin, who's got freedom, he's got time, he's not bogged down by debt. That's what this business can do for you, right? And so I like to look for opportunities where I can, raise the rents, value add opportunities, turn around, sell those, take that capital, and now redeploy into assets in really, really strong markets that you can hold long term for cash flow. That's kind of been the path that I've been following the last 3 years or so.
That's beautiful. Can I redirect back into a topic that I think I deterred us from just a few minutes ago? When you're talking about getting into a storage facility and the value add, a lot of times is just raising the rents to the fair market rent per unit for the
That's one
size of the unit.
example. But yeah.
Oh, okay, so we have a question here in the chat room about that. If you purchase a storage facility and then immediately raise the rates, uh, first of all, are these all monthly type contracts, or are they
Yes.
6 months, or
Monthly.
okay? So do you have an average percentage of customers that you would expect to lose because
Mhm.
you went from 45 to 75?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Really strong question. I like to do it in phases. So when I purchase a facility, there's one school of thinking that says, hey, rip the band-aid off, raise the rates all the way up to the market, and you're absolutely going to have some fallout. Now, I don't have a black and white percentage number because it's going to vary based on the market. It's going to be very based on the demographics. There's a lot of factors that weigh into that, but you should absolutely expect some fallout. When you raise the rates, you're going to lose some customers, but that's okay because
Yeah.
now it's a vacant unit that can go online and get rented at the market rates.
Ah,
Now, one of the things I do, Justin, to be strategic is I like to do it in 3 phases. So let's say I purchase a facility, I'll take 33% of the units and I'll bump the rates and I'll be right below the market. Like I'll be within $5 below the market. So I'm not trying to be the market leader initially, right? But I'm trying to be right below the market because think about how sticky of a product and
So
service storage is.
competitive. Yeah.
If somebody moves into a 10 by 20 or they have their contents in there, think about the time, energy, effort, and coordination it takes for them to move out. And is somebody going to do that to go down the street to rent to just save $5 or to pay $5? They're not going to do it, right? More times than not, they're going to stay there. So that's the approach that's the approach that I've taken.
That's an excellent point. And smart to do it in phases. Maybe, and when you say that, do you also mean like the 10 by 10s I'm going to do this with, but no, I'm not going to do that with the 10 by 20s yet. And then in 10 by 20s, I'll raise the rates here in a couple months. What's cool about that too is if it's month to month on all of these units, then you don't have to wait like a whole couple of years to be able to make this revolution work for you. You really only need just a few months to get rid of whatever customers you may lose and replace them with people that are still finding the unit to be competitively priced with the competition.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, Justin, I love what you asked. Excuse me, because we absolutely look at storage. We look at think of the different unit sizes as products. A 5 by 5 is not the same thing as a 10 by 10. So if I have, let's say, for example, I have 8 10 by 10s and I have 1 vacancy, but 7 of them are full. Well, I'm going to be more aggressive on raising the rates because I only have 1 left, simple supply and demand. But conversely, let's say I have 12 5 by 5s and I have 11 vacancies and only 1 full. Well, I'm not going to be as aggressive in raising the rates on that one because I have a lot of vacancy. Like I'm trying to buy occupancy. The most expensive thing in storage is a vacant unit because of what it does to the value of the facility. That is the most expensive part of storage is having
You'd rather make something than nothing.
Yeah.
Is really what it amounts to.
Correct. And by the way, every 7 to 8 months, we're bumping the rates. We're doing a new competition study.
That's smart. Yeah.
Every 7 to 8 months, we're bumping the rates.
And what's your avatar for like an investor or like I mentioned these mom and pop people that we put in, the residential real estate. What do you have an avatar of the people you work with? Or are you looking to partner with people? Right?
Yeah, no, really good question. So I coach people that want to start finding how to find, fund, and profit from storage. And then I have people that come to me and say, hey, I don't want to learn the business. I have some capital I'm looking to deploy. I'm looking for either equity or debt, right? It's different. Everybody has different goals. And so that's a totally different conversation than somebody that's like, hey, I want to go out and do this myself, right? I want to be a storage owner operator. But absolutely, yeah, I have such an abundant mindset. There's so many opportunities out there and I genuinely enjoy. That's how Justin and I connected through another community. I genuinely enjoy working with just people that have the right mindset. And to me, it's all about collaboration. It's not about competition. Like I literally share everything I do because I want to work with people. Like I want to collaborate and do more deals together.
I want to talk about the money more. And more specifically, like you said that you've done these facilities with no money of your own. Before we do that though, there are some mom and pop facilities out there that have these live-in apartments with them, and they have maybe a live-in manager. I don't know what the deal is with them being paid, or they get the free rent, or I don't know what the scenario is. There's probably a myriad of scenarios with these people. So what do you do if you acquire one of these, or if you're about to acquire one of them? Are you just going to take it like as it is, or do you plan to let that person go, maybe rent out the apartment in some way to someone else? Or like, how would you do this?
Let me answer that a couple different ways. The very first facility I bought in Mississippi has a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. I've owned that facility going on 3 years and it has remained vacant. One of the reasons I decided not to rent it is because my insurance was going to go through the roof. It wouldn't have made sense. Yeah, because of the liability aspect of it, of having somebody living on site. It didn't make sense financially just based on what. Now I could have not said something, but if God forbid something happens, they're cooking, there's a fire. Now I got a bigger problem in my hands. I wasn't going to go that path. So now I did consider and go back and forth on what if my boots on the ground, instead of paying him the $600 a month that I pay my boots on the ground, what if I exchanged and gave him a place to live and saved me the $600? But for me, it went back to the insurance problem, right?
Okay.
So having said that, I have buddies of mine that have bought facilities that have a house next to the facility and it's part of the parcel, and they exchange the housing to their boots on the ground person, right? Think of like an on-site property manager. But here's the thing though, like for me, I have no interest in that. I transitioned from single family to storage because I don't want a landlord. I don't want to manage a tenant. That's not what I want. So for me, it's not even worth it. That 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment I have at American Mini Storage has remained vacant, and I'm okay foregoing the $600, $700, $800 a month I might be able to get there.
Yeah, it's yeah.
So
Yes.
I'm sensing a couple different levels here for folks that are interested. And I do want to talk about the money, because that's a big thing. Everybody probably wants to know about the money. Like, how do you get money to do this? Because,
yeah,
you know, I don't have like $1.5 million just laying around. I'm not sure what to do with, you know? So, but anyway, the couple levels I'm sensing here are, if I just find a deal, source a deal, don't want to be really involved in the actual minutia of doing a storage facility deal, I can partner with you. I can bring the deal to you. And, you know, like you were mentioning earlier, the second level is that you do offer coaching. Okay.
correct.
And so if folks want to get involved in learning this for themselves and getting the money and actually acquiring a facility and then doing the value add and having the contracts and all of the things that it takes to do this and understanding how a facility works, that's what you teach in the coaching program. Is that right? Or
that's exactly right, Justin. And that's where I really derive joy and fulfillment. Storage and real estate, it's a vehicle. It's a tool that allows us to have time freedom and financial freedom and all that good stuff. Working with people, doing these types of calls, that's what juices me up. So yeah, I mean, I have a Storage Wins coaching program where I walk people literally A through Z through the entire process. If you guys go to storagewins.com, that's where you can learn some more information, apply, and see if there's a fit there. But yeah, absolutely. So I have a coaching program. And then, like you said, there's people that have no interest in learning the ins and outs of storage, but they're a good deal finder, or they know how to raise capital. I'd love to have a conversation with that person as well, because there might be some synergies and some collaborative efforts.
Man, I feel like I might be both categories, you know.
Nice.
I want to get on both levels, frankly. So,
Right.
but I think there's a link in the description of the video wherever you're watching this. It's www.storagewins. Is that correct?
That's right.
Storage
StorageWins.com.
wins, not wins like it's blowing. WINS. Storagewins.com. And just go fill out the little form there and get started. Okay. There's nothing more complicated than that here. And I really do hope you do, because this is an incredible business, it sounds like, to be in.
So good.
Just between you and me, for the last 20 years, ever since I discovered that my sister-in-law's parents owned a storage facility before they passed, that whole thing got me. I was looking at it sideways, like, what? Like, oh my goodness, how cool. All these little units that kick off this. And another thing, they get free stuff a lot. Like, in other words, people didn't pay the rent, and so they go and open up the facility and they drag out all this. Have you guys seen the show Storage Wars?
Storage Wars.
This was like their own personal storage war. They get in there, they're like, oh wow, look what I found. And then, you know, I'd see my sister-in-law at church or something. I'd be like, well, where did you get that? Oh, well, mom and dad got that out of a storage unit. They didn't pay. And so we opened it up. And I mean, it was fascinating from start to finish for me. And so you've really cleared it up for me a lot today. And I appreciate that. So anybody out there that really wants to get into this, there's two levels. Either bring a deal and just let him partner with you while he does the deal, or, you know, fill out the thing and start a coaching program with him and learn actually how to do this step by step for yourself. Now, I know before you probably want to run over and do that, you want to hear how money gets raised for this, because you want to know, hey, can I really pull it off? Okay. And I want to talk about the money, because that is a big deal. I mean, how if I do get involved in this and I try to launch this new adventure, how am I going to raise $1.5 million or whatever it takes to buy one of these mom and pop deals? Like, give us some examples of what they cost and how a guy just like me off the streets can start doing this.
Absolutely. Well, here's the first thing I want to say that is so, so important to understand, because if you believe this, everything else becomes that much easier. If and when you find the right opportunity, the right storage deal, trust that the money will follow. Now, I'll give you some practical, we'll kind of break some things down so that you actually have, some meat that you can go do something with. But that's the first thing, the belief that if I find the right opportunity, there's no shortage of money or capital chasing these deals and opportunities. I truly believe that all the money we could ever raise for a deal is found right in this little device that each one of us has. Whether it's an iPhone or an Android, you go to your contacts list. The only difference is the people in your contacts list may not know what it is you do and how they can benefit from being involved in a real estate deal with you. So the only gap is how you communicate to them and what you tell them. But I got to tell you, man, one of the things people always ask me about, I say, man, how do I get involved in storage? I always believe in planting little seeds. Like one of the things I encourage people is I help people earn a higher rate of return on their money, backed by unique self-storage investments and opportunities. And 9 out of 10 times that kind of raises their eyebrows, like, self-storage, that's interesting. And then I schedule a call with them to actually break down how the process works. But other people's money is kind of like the 30,000-foot view of how I do these deals without any of my money, right? So I'm a big, big believer in creative financing. I love, love, love seller financing and understanding how to structure deals using the seller to become the bank, right? So that's the way that I bought Amelia Personal Storage. We got 90% seller financing. I brought in a private lender to fund the 10% down that I needed, and we got phenomenal terms. Bank financing is another option, whether it's SBA or, here's a pro tip. When you find a storage facility in one of these secondary and tertiary markets, don't go to the Chases, the Wells Fargos, the Bank of Americas. Find the small local savings and loans or community banks in that market. They have an appetite for storage.
Interesting.
Well, they're going to want to look, they're going to want me to get naked in front of them and like look at all my details. You know what I mean? They're going to investigate my life.
SBA for sure.
But what you're saying is that there are actually mom and pop storage facilities out there where they're not expecting necessarily to cash out the entire amount of the purchase price. Let's just assume it's $1.5 million. That they're willing to finance this if you have a down payment. And then you mentioned earlier, you bring in private money to do whatever cash you have to put in for entry fee.
That's right. Really so cool. Look, the facility in Amelia Island, which is just north of Jacksonville, we paid $2.1 million for that facility. We got 90% seller financing. So the seller financed 1.9. I needed 200 grand. Myself and a partner needed 200 grand to get into the deal. He put up 100. I got a private lender.
Hold on, man. I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to, because it just occurs to me that the reason why a mom and pop would do this is because they don't want to pay taxes on $2.1 million. They want to pay taxes on 200,000 and create cash flow for them or their estate. Is that
Let me take it a step further. The gentleman that sold me this facility, not only did he have a big tax liability by selling for 2.1, but he actually makes more money passively by being the bank than he was making running and operating the facility.
Wow, man.
We pay him more money every single month passively. And he doesn't have the management. He doesn't have management headaches. He doesn't have operational headaches. He doesn't have to pay taxes, insurance, take care of the lawn, run the business. We do that. He gets an ACH deposit every single month, and he's actually making more money than when he was operating the facility on his own.
That's mind blowing. In fact,
so good.
Wow.
Which should be our goal, Justin. That's
It
our
should be.
goal, is to
Yeah.
be the bank at the end of the storage.
Oh, come
I'll
on,
tell I'll tell
Absolutely.
you what, Angel. You know
Angel.
what a mentor of mine told me years ago that has always stuck with me? He goes, Alex, think about it. Drive into any city. Who owns the biggest buildings?
Yeah, those
Banks.
banks.
And how do banks make money?
Yep,
They lend the money, right? So
leverage.
that's
Yep.
another conversation, but you're right on. You're spot on.
Wow. Wow. Okay. You got me dreaming, man. You got me dreaming, and that's awesome. That's a great feeling. I
Yeah, it's an awesome
appreciate
asset
that.
class. It really is.
Thanks
Really
for
cool.
bringing these ideas and
Yeah.
concepts and
Justin, by the way, dude, there's nothing special about me, man. Like I'm no genius. Like I say that like sincerely. Anybody can do this. This is not a complicated business. In fact, it's simple. Now, does it require time, energy, and effort? Of course. Like I don't want to make it seem like
Sure.
these storage facilities are just hanging by trees, but there's a lot of opportunity out there for anybody that's willing to educate themselves and then go after it.
You said
Yeah.
70,000 mom and pop.
Yeah, last I heard there was slightly
Wow.
over 70,000 mom and pop operated facilities, and that's excluding the big Class A public storages. We're talking mom
Right.
and pop facilities.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
So
there's a handful right down the street
yeah,
from where I am, for sure.
that's great. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm from rural. I'm from the sticks, and originally I live in the urban now, but I originally in the sticks, and I remember just driving past them, looking at them like, I wonder how much money they make. That's what I
They
guess
can
if
do pretty well. They can do pretty well.
I should have, I should have been smarter than that and just figured out per unit what it costs, but they have different size units and it just seemed like a lot of work. But yeah, it's an awesome concept. And man, you got me really dreaming about it now. And I appreciate that. And before we go, I want to remind everybody that there's two levels here. You can partner with him if you find deals, or you can also sign up for a coaching program and learn how to do this for yourself step by step, which is really what I recommend, that you maybe step into both realms here. But for real, learning to do it for yourself would be probably the most lucrative for
No
you
doubt.
personally. So
No
go
doubt.
check it out at storagewins.com. That's WINS, like you're winning, wins, storagewins.com, and sign up and talk to the guy. Okay. And find out what the deal is there, because, it's only your future we're talking about here. Right. So if you feel like there's something in it that's sparking inside of you, well, don't wait. You don't want that to go out. So go get that conversation started with Alex. Alex, I really appreciate everything you've shared with us today. And I want to open up the panel here again. I'm sure there's some more questions that Angel has. She's been pretty quiet today. And I want her to ask any questions she has at all. Ty also, and then Kelly Johnson or Mike Minkoff, if you're in here, you want to say something, that's fine. Anybody in the chat, go ahead and throw something in the chat if you have another question. We have a lot of really high praises. Okay.
Cool, man. Cool.
A
Wow.
lot of people are really enjoying this today. So, but if you have questions, throw them in the chat. Any questions anybody has, I'll shut up.
So I guess, can you reiterate real quick? If I was going to go do this, where are my target market areas?
Yeah. So big picture, you're looking for cities that have a population of 1,000 to 60,000 people. And those are rule of thumbs, right?
Okay.
It's not to say if you found a facility in a city that has 80,000 that you can't, of course you can, but those are rules of thumb, right?
Okay.
Ideally, I like to be in markets and cities, Angel, where the medium household income is 50,000 or greater. Why? Because you want the potential customers around the area to have some income where they can actually like rent storage and they're not going to be moving out in 30 or 60 days. Right. And then I like to see markets where the population is increasing over time for obvious reasons. If you can be in the path of progress, and I'm sure Ty with his experience in multifamily can speak to that, that's great. Right. Now, the second part of your question was, how do I go do this? So depending on where you live, I might suggest if you live in a secondary or tertiary market, you might want to start in your backyard. Go to census.gov, and that'll tell you what the average medium household is or where the population is. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? But for me, I didn't have the benefit of looking in my backyard. So the country is your oyster. Now, I tend to gravitate towards the southeast part of the country because I like facilities where once I go under contract and I'm going to do my due diligence, that's the first time I'm buying a plane ticket and hopping on. And ideally, I'd like to be one flight away. I can go from Miami International to that particular market. Ideally, I'd like to avoid connecting flights. So depending on where you live, I might focus on your particular state and start looking for the cities in your state that go ahead and meet that criteria. But the truth of the matter is whether you buy a facility in your state or in thousands of miles away, there's no difference. There really is no difference.
So how do we get data? Because I can't go to PropStream, right, and pull storage facilities. So
yeah, so there's one of the things I teach my clients is to build their top 100. So I'm a big fan of organically building your list through Google Maps, right?
Okay.
Based on certain criteria. But there's a company out there called dataaxle.com, AXLE. They used to be infousa.com. Dataaxle, you call them up and you give them your specific criteria. Hey, I'm looking for mom and pop run operated storage facilities in these types of markets. Ideally, I'm looking for at least 10,000 net rentable square feet and up. You give them your criteria, and obviously you have to pay for it, but they can send you an Excel spreadsheet that has the name of the facility, the address, the owner's name, the contact information. Now, the quality, if I'm being honest, guys, can be hit or miss. I personally have never purchased a facility from a list that I bought, but I have buddies who have. That's the quick and easy way to get your hands on a list. And or you can build it organically from the ground up.
That's a great answer. I am in the pretty house business, so there's a bunch of states that I avoid just because they're not very friendly to landlords.
Yeah.
So what do I do when it comes to self-storage facilities? Are there states that you avoid? That's a question in the chat here, Mr. Thinker. Thanks for watching today.
I can't tell you that there's any particular states I avoid. Now, I'm going to share this and hopefully it doesn't rub people the wrong way because I don't mean it in a political sense, but red states for me, right, are a little easier. They don't have as much red tape, no pun intended. Right. So that's not to say that I wouldn't buy a facility in upstate New York, for example. Right. I just tend to focus on the southeast part of the country, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, the Carolinas, Tennessee.
God's country.
States like that, right? But again, the country is your oyster. Like, as long as it meets the criteria that we've kind of talked about, you can absolutely look for storage. Now, one thing that I'd fail miserably if I didn't mention this. Storage, you have to measure the supply and demands. Right? You want to be in a market that there's more people and not enough storage for obvious reasons. You don't want to be in a market that has, within a 5-mile radius, you got 15 facilities and you're in a town of 6,000 people. Right? Like you're going to struggle to get occupancy in a market like that. So there's a tool out there called Radius Plus, radiusplus.com. I think you get like 5 free credits. And then after that, it's some type of subscription or you got to pay per search. But that will tell you what's called the supply index or the square foot per capita. It basically means how many people within a certain mile radius do they have relative to every square foot of storage.
Wow, that's great.
So you mentioned the top 100. Is that more like networking and people that you connect with?
Online. So one of the things I do, I'll give you some practical steps, is if you, in fact, Justin, can I share my screen?
Yes, I would love that.
If I can share my screen, I think I can show this easier than I can explain it. Let me know when I'm ready to rock and roll. Let me see.
Yeah, I think you can do it. Do you have a big green button?
Sweet.
There you go. Right.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so check this out. So go to Google Maps, right? Maps.google.com. Somebody give me a city and state. It could be any city and state. Doesn't really matter.
Does this have to be a secondary and tertiary, or are we just
it doesn't have to be, because I can still illustrate the example if it's not. But I mean, if you know of one, even better, but it doesn't have to be.
Lewisburg, Kansas.
Lewisburg, Kansas is a great one. Great answer, Angel.
What's the city?
Lewisburg, Kansas.
Lewisburg. Berg. Okay.
Burg. Yeah.
Okay,
there you go.
Lewisburg, Kansas. Okay, perfect. So check this out. we went to Lewisburg, Kansas, and I don't know anything about this particular market. So let's see what we have here. You're going to click on this button that says nearby, and you're going to type in self-storage. All right. Now, what this is going to do is Google is going to bring up all of the storage facilities that it picks up in this area. So the first thing I do is I zoom out a little bit. This looks like a very rural area. And I want to make sure that I'm not dealing with any big players like Public Storage and CubeSmart. And I can tell right off the bat, I don't see any major players like that. So all these red dots are potential opportunities. So the question next becomes is how do you start to narrow down? Like, where do I even focus? This is the first thing I do. A+ storage caught my attention right off the bat. Why did they catch my attention? They only have 3 Google reviews. Now, 85% of our customers come from online, whether it's PPC or SEO. The fact that this particular facility only has 3 Google reviews, that's an indication that whoever owns that facility doesn't understand the importance of Google reviews and having a strong online presence.
Right.
Now, what's the second thing I look for? Look at Cleveland Self-Storage. Yeah. What's the difference between this particular Google My Business listing and this one? No website. You see that?
Gotcha.
So Cleveland Self-Storage, I'm going to click on Cleveland Self-Storage, no website. And that tells me just by the mere fact that you don't have a website, you're not dialed in as a storage owner operator.
So bingo. I mean, you've already dialed in to facilities that are not performing all up to efficient top performance. They're underperforming.
Correct. Exactly right. Wow. Exactly right. So I take a look at this. I'll just kind of eyeball it. You can just tell it's not. So what do? You call. And I love the approach. Could you call and say, hey, came across your facility, Cleveland Mini Storage online, and I was thinking if you've ever thought about selling, or have you ever considered selling? Oh. You can do a very direct approach. The approach that I prefer is to humble yourself and say, hey, I came across your facility. I would stroke and nurture that person. Looks like a great looking facility. I'm in the single family space and I'm really looking to purchase my first storage facility. I was hoping you could give me a little bit of guidance. Can you kind of share with me what your experience has been like owning storage? What I have found, guys, is that most of the time, not always, but most of the time, people genuinely want to help. And if you humble yourself and kind of take that approach, what's going to happen is that it opens up the door for dialogue, where now you can start to connect with the person, build relationship, and inevitably at some point, you can then transition and say, hey, this has been awesome. Thank you for sharing all this valuable insight. Do you know anybody that might consider selling? I can't tell you how many times the actual person says, well, actually, I would consider if ... And now you've just stepped into a different part of the conversation.
Dude, you've just inspired me. I was thinking, really good. I was just thinking, this is business to business, B2B, as versus, B2C, business to consumer, customer, business to business. But actually, no, I'm going to invent a new thing called H2B, human to business. Like, just call them and be human, right? And just be honest. That's another good H word. Like, hey, this is my first, foray into this. I'm interested in talking about this. What advice you have? Have you ever thought about selling? I mean, it really doesn't get any more simple than that. Just be yourself and just ask people and be nice, be friendly.
Yeah, that's great. I have a question. Just that one that you just brought up. If we see U-Hauls or things like that, are those candidates or not?
Yeah, this is 100% a candidate. In fact, I really like this because it's a good size facility. You can tell you're not talking about a 10, 12,000 square foot facility here. This is absolutely a candidate, but the biggest reason it's a candidate is, again, no website, little to poor Google reviews. That is a mom and pop owner operator, 100%.
So when we call those numbers,
we're
likely going to get the person who owns the property and not a property manager or someone else.
It can be hit or miss, and it's tough to kind of share with you how but like with it, whenever I cold call, within the first 10 to 15 seconds, I identify who I am, why I'm calling, and I'm complimenting them. Because what is your job when you receive a cold call? Your job is to try to hang up as quickly as possible. right?
Right.
So, I mean, let's be honest, who likes getting the cold call? So 100%, like you're gonna get a pretty good sense if you make enough calls, if you're speaking to the owner or if you're speaking to a property manager, right? Now, when I call, I automatically assume that I'm speaking to the owner because if I'm not, they're gonna correct you. They're
Okay.
just gonna tell you.
Oh, I see.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Hey.
mhm.
Yep.
Great.
But by the way, look,
Um,
Storage Mart. This is a big player. Look at the difference. 230 reviews.
yeah.
They have, if we click on the website, I bet you this is a nice looking website and I've never been to it. You see, look at the difference.
Yep.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
This is a
it looks
facility that we're
corporate.
not targeting. This is a class A facility. This is
Yeah.
not what we're
Class
going
A.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
B and
That's
C.
great. But what's cool is the U-Haul stuff doesn't kill the deal for us. I mean,
No, no, not at
would you
all.
buy when you buy a facility like that, does the U-Haul ability to sell U-Hauls also come with it, or you just get rid of that aspect of it,
You
or
can. I get rid of it because it requires more management. And again,
sure,
I'm into this for time freedom. I'm not looking to
personnel?
manage a bunch of stuff. Chances
Yeah.
are, if you go with U-Haul, you might need an on-site person there versus running an unmanned model. So
Yeah.
you can, and it's an extra revenue stream. I just haven't gotten that direction.
Yeah,
Very good.
guys, we've been going over an hour now, and I don't want to I don't want to stretch this out too far because if you're interested in it, you need to get up off your butt and go find out at storagewins.com. Because there's no way we can break it all down. Although I feel like I could talk about this for hours, probably. I
Good.
probably
Very
could
good.
talk about this for hours. Alex, I like you, man. You've got a great energy and a great spirit about you. You've really brought hope and some adventures. Really, like I feel like there's an adventure awaiting, and
Yeah.
that's an
Totally.
exciting feeling, man. And I really appreciate that, Alex.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today. One last round though. Is there any questions anybody has before we cut out of here?
Nope. Who's going to help me do this before the end of the summer?
Yeah. All right. Next
That's a
deal.
good. You know
Get
what's
it.
so cool is he doesn't realize this, but he just gave us 2 or 3 that we can call right away. You know,
Yeah, guys, there's where we live
100.
in such
Yeah.
an abundant world. There's just what I just shared with you at the end there. Like anybody can go do this. You can go
Yeah.
do this.
yeah,
Beautiful.
that's
Awesome.
great.
Well, my wheels are turning because
Yeah.
honestly, that I'm not in Lewisburg, that Riverview Estates area, that's where I live.
Okay.
But this big house behind me, we're getting ready to sell it and we're going to move into an RV and we're going to go live in trailer parks that we're purchasing. So I was
Awesome.
looking at what I'm going to do with all my stuff. And so instead of going and storing it, I can just
Storage.
buy a facility and store
Buy
my stuff
one.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Own the
So
facility. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I
Hey,
love
Justin,
it.
before we wrap here, because I had a
Yeah.
question and I wanted to answer it really quick for the
Sure.
benefit of everybody. In storage on average, you're talking about a 35% operating expense ratio. So if you were to compare that to multifamily, Ty can correct me if I'm wrong, multifamily, probably 45, 50% operating expense ratio. So what does that mean? That means that you have bigger margins. You got more room so it only takes, so in other words, if your facility
Yeah.
generates 100,000 in revenue, roughly on average, 35,000 of that is going to get eaten up in operating expenses. The remaining 65% or 65,000 is your NOI, your net operating income.
I can tell you guys that I spent several years working as a broker in commercial real estate, and it is pretty rare in my experience to find businesses that have such a large profit margin.
Wow.
What he's talking about with expenses, of course, what's left over after expenses is, profits, right? So,
Your NOI.
it's not unusual to find businesses out there that are spending 65, 70% of every dollar that they make and in some kind of expense or bill. But when you're talking about 35% expenses, that's leaving a whole lot of change right there still in your pocket. And that feels good too. So I don't know how many business models there are out there that create that particular scenario, but since this is one of them, it's definitely an eyebrow raiser and we should look into it. Storagewins.com, everybody. Anybody got anything else before we wrap up? God love you. God bless you today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, the panel, for being here. Angel and Ty and Kelly and Mike. We miss Andre today. He was busy out making money, but we'll see him again next week. And everybody, thank you for being here, especially
Alex.
Alex.
Appreciate
Alex, God bless you,
Very
man.
good, very
Thank
good.
Thank you,
you.
Justin.
Thank you and
Appreciate
your
you, man.
family for letting you be here, man. I know you've got a great life. You're going to go live it now, but I'll be thinking about you. All right. And I'm going to go over to storagewins.com and I'll talk to you later, man. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you,
one.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Angel.